The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a warm welcome to the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I'm sitting in for Mr. Rogers Turiahawe, who's not here today. But of course, we are here every Monday, starting from 7 to 9 p.m. We're always here having a conversation with you, with Uganda, to try to shape a better Uganda for ourselves, for our future, and of course, for the people who will inherit this country on behalf of us. So I would love to welcome each and every one of you. You're tuned in to Digitalk TV. That is at the Alternative Uganda on Facebook, at the Alternative Uganda on Twitter, on YouTube, or you can also look at Digitalk TV. That is still on Facebook, on Twitter, on all social media platforms. Feel free to just send in some of your questions, some of your comments. We will be able to just share them with the panel that I have today. And of course, you can also, maybe if you have a message, a remark, feel free to also send it directly there. You can also look me up at Edgar Mathew Karuhanga, that is on Facebook and all other social media platforms. Today, I'm privileged to be joined by, of course, the usual suspect, retired Major Pollar Awich, who is the Director for External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement, NRM. He's always here with us every Monday to just try to highlight on what is happening in their political party, and of course, generally in part of government, how are we doing our things. And of course, I've also been joined by Associate Professor Barigayomwe Rogers, who is a lecturer right there at Kampala International University. He will be also talking about more of what he does and who he is, and you'll be able to also know or have some insights therein. What is happening in the country? A lot. We have Makerere graduation, 74th graduation happening right now. It will be happening from today up to Friday. Over 12,000 students have graduated. But of course, that is one of the snippets that we're going to be looking at. The influx of graduates in the market vis-a-vis the jobs, is it really compatible? Do these young people have the skills to actually, be able to fit in the job market itself, or is something we're doing, it's just an influx of graduates? We'll be highlighting on that. And of course, last week, the National Resistance Movement was making 38 years in power. That is from 1986 up to date. They've been spearheading this country. Maybe the question to Mr. Pollar, which and everybody who is in line with NRM. Really, the vision for NRM in 1986, is it still the vision today? Are there some things that we've achieved? Are there some things that need to be improved? We shall be also highlighting on that particular issue. Feel free to just send in your messages, and I'll be able to read them subsequently as we continue with the program. Allow me to welcome Mr. Pollar Awich to just greet us and tell us how your week is, sir. You're welcome.
Just to greet you, and the past week or the future week?
Both, you can just summarize them.
Okay, greeting to our viewers. Once again, we are here on Monday. Last week was very good, and it was activity packed. We were in Jinja, and we observed the ceremony, the peaceful, the beautiful parade, and the speech from the president. And then we came back, went to Kole district to bury Honorable Cecilia Gwal. I was there. And it was also an activity worth mentioning. It was national in character. It was given official burial with 7-gun salute. So among those are the activities that took place. But this week we still hope for the busy week. Of course, we have started with this debate or this discussion. We hope to have a peaceful week with the graduation in. Otherwise, always nice to be with you, and nice to meet my OB. Rogers is my very serious old boy of the Great Ntare School. We were very active in debate. They were young though. I picked them up from senior 2, and we debated very well. His lot is Simon Kasiati of NTV. The Tarema Jotham was in Electoral Commission. Kamukama Dansan, Mwe was Sharaza. We lost one, Daudi Kagambirwe. It was a lot of young boys, but we terrorized, in quotes and quotes, all schools. In other words, winning debating competition. So I'm glad to meet Rogers again in the studio.
Definitely a reunion of old boys. Mr. Barigayomwe, you're welcome to the Hotline Show.
A pleasure to meet you, and my senior mentor, Major Retired Awich Pollar. It was a pleasure meeting you and the audience of Alternative Digital.
Okay, we're privileged to have you, sir. Let me start with you, Mr. Awich. The NIM government to which you belong has made 38 years in power, and I think you're fortunate to have been in the liberation struggle. And you've also seen the fruits of your liberation or your fight. Major, how do you account for the 38 years in power? Do you think the vision you had in the 80s before fighting, even during the fighting, even taking power in 1986, do you think you have realized some of the goals you set up to realize at the time?
Yeah, we have. It's first of all, it is true I participated. Actually, when I met the Rogers in school, we had been brought from the struggle. I remember I was a second lieutenant by O-level time, and I was a full lieutenant in senior 5. I was promoted a captain in Makerere University. So when I was doing law in Makerere, I graduated both in a degree in law, but I also walked away when I was a captain, because after the war, our deployment, the Kadogos, our deployment was to study. So if you absconded from study, you would have absconded from work. So the work was the study. So it is true we participated now. The objectives have been achieved. The objectives to some of us who were young, when I look back now, the objectives were, some were codified, of course, in the 10-point program. But some objectives were seen in songs. Because if I remember the songs, most of the songs in NRA, if not all of them, were songs, revolutionary songs, which would express aspirations for the future, or at the very least would express discontent with the status quo. But many songs expressed a wish, an aspiration for a better Uganda. And if you look at the lines, those songs, the line songs, many things have been achieved. We definitely have a stable country, and I've been telling people that We have had Uganda for 38 years. People take it for granted. Because in the 38 years, many countries have collapsed. Yugoslavia collapsed in these 38 years to the extent that at one time it had remained Serbia and Montenegro. They qualified for World Cup quarterfinal, and even Serbia and Montenegro again broke from home. Then we ask them, now if you win World Cup, where will you take it? Somali broke, Ethiopia lost Eritrea, Sudan lost South Sudan, Libya is no more. So, one thing is that in many of those songs we are singing, forget about the codification. Codification here meaning a written down in the 10-point program. In one of the 10-point programs was a unity, United Uganda. Yes. We have achieved it. And apart from having it codified in a 10-point program, but also the songs that would sing about the unity and unity, we have kept it. It is one Uganda. And not only kept it, but I think now, even if you're a Karamojong and you're in Kabale for some work and you're on a mobile phone and you shout in Karamojong, I don't think anybody cares about what you're talking. Or in the same way, if you're a Muchiga in a Karamoja and you're on phone and you're talking with somebody home, who cares? But in the past, it wasn't that easy. People were seen like total strangers and you'd be killed. So, unity has been achieved. Democracy, we have regular and fair elections. Somebody may complain about this, but it's not always perfect. But there's also a remedy of court actions. If you feel you're not certified, you go to court.
Before you leave that particular issue, because Mr. Museveni did not go to the bush for maybe the economics itself alone, that Uganda was having hunger or things like that. The main reason was the peaceful transfer of power. One of the main reasons was the extrajudicial killings. These things are still here 38 years down the road, sir.
A peaceful transfer of power. I think the president quoted sometime to say one of the reasons was they stay in power. But I think the issue was democracy, which I have explained that we have tried to address, and it is addressed. Now, about extrajudicial killings. Extrajudicial killings now would be the exception than the rule. And when somebody is extrajudicially killed, it perplexes. But it used not to be the case. It was everywhere. Now, extrajudicial killing here means the state picking somebody and killing. Right now, you do a lot to examine, to investigate and get it. For example, the alleged killings, which were death which occurred last year in the 2021 something.
November 2020.
The state has always said that if you have any evidence that a couple of somebody or a private somebody in the police or army did it, bring evidence. The ones which had evidence in Wandigea and Rubaga, they are sentenced to 40 years or even one to death. So, you know very well that in UPDF, if you kill extrajudicial killing, you are put in firing squad. So that one has been dealt with. Extrajudicial killing, if it occurs now, it is the exception than the norm. So I just wanted to mention one or two more to try to illustrate that we have achieved. Economy. You know, some of you guys were not born. But I can assure you the economic situation was so bad that this beer that now beer company advertise. I told somebody and he thought I was so obsessed with the alcohol, but I don't drink. I don't take alcohol, not even wine. So the beer that you now see sold used to be allocated to be sold, not allocated for free. Kitgum district, 300 crates. Bushenyi district, 400 crates. And you pay money. But now you have to advertise. Nearly each and every good now is sponsoring advertisement to sell goods. There was not even salt, not even sugar.
So that was 40 years ago.
Yes. That. So we thought that, yes, we said.
The one in the steering wheel of this country. Don't you think we would be having beer all over this country?
You see, that is the mistake I've seen again and again. For example, there is a belief that when something goes on right in Uganda, it's normal, it should happen. But when something goes wrong, it is NRM who has failed. I'll give you an example. If Batoro were living peacefully with Banyoro without fighting, it's okay, it is normal. Banyoro and Batoro should be living peacefully. But when their chulis are fighting with Madi over power land, NRM has failed. So when do you draw the line between what has happened naturally and what is a blame? All good things happen naturally. The bad ones is NRM. So when Batoro Banyoro are peaceful, it's okay, they should be peaceful. When the Chulis are fighting with the Madi, you see, NRM has failed. You see, the people are fighting. I can assure you there is nothing which happens in a vacuum in a country. And that is why when you look at a manifesto looks at every detail. Even the detail which is not seen is seen in the implementation. Nothing happens in a vacuum. To the extent that I can dare say even oxygen we breathe is government. Why? When government, or how? When government is talking about environment, plant trees, don't pollute environment, is practically saying, please let us have good oxygen. So you can't say there's nothing which happens for free. It is possible that even the 40 years we could have not have the beer. Because even the 40 years now, there are things which we are missing. Then how do you choose to point the things which, like for example, roads in villages? We don't have those roads. Or some roads are bad. How comes you say 40 years you don't have roads? But the ones that we have in the 40 years, you are saying it is normal.
No,
you are saying it is normal. So
even a snail would have moved somewhere.
So to be worked on. Okay. Don't take it for granted. The economy I've mentioned, the Democrats have mentioned, roads, infrastructure, a lot has been done. On the River Nile now, you used to have a bridge in Jinja, a bridge in Karoma and Pakwach. Now you have a bridge in Kayunga, you have a bridge in the National Park, you have so many things. You join all the boats, and the list goes on and on and on.
You can also mention something about corruption, the corruption problem and the increasing debt burden. What do you think about that?
Maybe you don't put them together. It will confuse us.
Yes, sir.
Put them one after one. Talk of corruption. Yeah. Corruption, somebody asked me somewhere to grade the 10-point programs in percentage form. I gave 80% to NRM in passing. But when it came to corruption, I gave 48, meaning it is a failure, 2%. Why? Even the 48% I gave was because at the attempt to put institutional framework, like the laws, like regulations to the laws, of course, like institutions like IGG, DPP, and the anti-corruption court. I still feel they should put anti-corruption prison, because this one from court, where are they going? They should also have their own prison. So corruption has remained something not dealt with. That is admissible. We have continued to have cadres who are indisciplined. We have continued to have government officials who misuse resources. That is an admission. Even recently in Jinja, the president was still talking about that. And the percentage I gave before the president said it. Before the president said it in Jinja. I gave this 48 before. So it's an area that we really have not done much. Simply because it is a material thing which affects individuals' interest, but we have to come out clean. The other aspect that I didn't want us to mix up was the debt. The debt.
6 trillion today.
Yeah, the debt burden is really it is an issue of global north inequality, global north versus south. We have continued to have unequal economic system. For example, the same Land Rover in 1960 that would cost, say, 10 bags of coffee. That same Land Rover now costs 40 or 50. So their value of their goods have increased, the value of our goods have continued to go down. So the debt is really a north-south problem, and that's why many countries will continue to be in it. America also has debts than Japan. They have much more debts than anybody can see. The only country, I don't know, Rogers may know, but the only country I know clearly without debt is Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein has no debt at all. They have surplus budget. So, but otherwise, ours is something that needs to be dealt with, but also it is there are many issues that explain. The biggest one is the north-south and the design of the global economy. And that's why this NAM was saying they need to sit and restructure the multilateral economic system. That is World Bank and IMF. If it continues the way we are going to be tied like that for a long time.
Okay, today it means for 7 p.m. Rogers, Professor, in your assessment, and this is just to just inquire from yourself, your experience, for the 38 years in power, what is there to commend? Okay, there is a lot to commend, but do you think NRM has reached its utmost potential or has served Ugandans to the best that they can, or you can also say that you've experienced the best they have or they can offer?
I think what they did is they surpassed, and I think the only problem is that they had a narrow and limited vision, because the NRM vision was reached and surpassed about 10 years ago, and right now they are on a decline. Because like my mentor, retired Awich, Major Awich said, they liberated the country, true.
Yes.
And because I associate with many of them, when I hear their history, I've heard their deep history, and some of it was touching the passion they had for the country.
Patriotism.
But right now, you cannot convince anyone, most of us youth, that actually they were liberating the country. Right now, they've changed the notion to be that they were liberating themselves. Because look at their leader, and that's a president. Indeed, when I'm one of the students of President Museveni, when you look at the passion he had for the country, then you look at the fact that he has not stopped his son to take this as a kingdom, you notice that it was about liberating themselves. When, like Awich said, when you look at the corruption tendencies of these officers, most of them have a record of corruption, of amassing wealth, of neglect of the citizenship. So it's very hard to convince right now and to convince the future. I think what they did, and the president's daughter wrote a book, he said that you sell your birthright. They did it well, and now they've sold their birthright. This coming generation will never believe, for example, with this kind of, let's say, Muhoozi project, that actually President Museveni fought for the good of the country. They will never believe most of these generals who have amassed, you've seen public officers having houses which are bigger than hospitals. So who will believe? Well, I mean, I will talk that Captain knows my father was one of them. And he had a problem now, struggling to explain to his grandchildren that they liberated the country. They saw him, they saw like the arrest of their political enemies, like Chagulani, like how they arrest. And they're like, you guys, the grandchildren literally told this, my father is from NASA. They said, you are bandits. And I saw the struggle of the old man to defend that actually. And because I will tell you, I was left in 1978 I was just a baby. I was left by my father to go. So I know it that he sacrificed.
Yeah.
I know it for sure. And I know the sacrifices they did. But now the grandchildren, he cannot explain to them that they are not bandits, they are not after their own selves, that they are not after their selfish means. So I think, if you told me to analyze, I believe they did it, but because at one time they had a limited vision, right now they are in a time of decline, excitement, and they don't know, they didn't know when to leave. So
it doesn't seem like they are leaving.
They're not even interested in leaving, and they seem like, for example, many of them mentored us well. Most of us, I've told you, he's my mentor. But when we came of even us, we thought they are mentoring us to take over. Instead, they even want to kill us for having even interest in political position, for having ideas. different from theirs. So it is, I even sometimes get grappled and fear, like, you know, in one of our local tribes, they're like, these people are killing their own. Right now, you saw Naduri's son going. I've lost position because of my liberal mind. And I'm like, these, my fathers are the ones killing me. So it is, they are never going to convince anyone, though some of us know they had the passion, but they lost it somewhere. And not only one person losing it, it is the most of them.
The entire system.
The entire system. You saw what General Kaihura was talking about. Yeah? And you're like, are these the generals who went to, or because of overstaying, I think they got up in a lot of mess, and right now, to rectify the mess, they are making even more wrongs. So I believe we should, one, credit them for the peace which came. But the problem, like for me, I'm an expert in conflict.
Yes.
I know the situation is likely actually to be worse if we don't manage this transition. If we don't manage this conversation, what is coming is likely to be even worse than they inherited.
Professor Yomuntu Wabulijo, as they like to call them, when you go down to the normal people, do you feel that they have a problem as Ugandans who have not really stood up, or it's just them being boxed into a corner to just assert their powers?
The Omuntu Wabulijo is actually very saddened and very terrified. But it's not only on Omuntu Wabulijo. Actually, I tell them it is us, their children, who are even more at risk. I'll tell you, us, the children of these generals, most of them are thinking of exiling themselves, because it is unfortunate, because the pressure is on a generation of, like, the Muntu Wabulijo is desperate, and most of their sentiments is that we are going to grab back all these things by force. So what has happened with most of my colleagues, and who I would say are the sons of these generals, they've decided to exile themselves. Many of them. And many of them have left the politics. They've left it to them because of their selfish tendency. And they've resigned because many of them don't have a chance, like as mentioned by my good friend Awich. All they have is to take drugs, because their own parents have siphoned basically they have suffocated their space. So most of them actually are into their houses taking drugs. And the generals know. They know what their children are doing because of their selfishness of not knowing when to leave. And it has overturned their legacy. Talk about their main cause of going to the bush. I've published largely on election. And my work is online. But it's very embarrassing to see that the reasons they went to fight government because of rigging, they've overdone it and suppressed it. I will tell you, in our locality, some of us who come from the West, there is no voting. Leave alone the one of cheating, but there is no voting, and they know it. People are
or you vote for the right candidate.
As in, you arrive at the polling station and they say your vote has already been taken.
Casted, yes, yeah. I've heard
And who you can't fool everyone. Of course, you won't suppress everyone. These are records. And unfortunately, like we hear in history, they were not digital at that time. They were not digital. Right now, they are digital evidence. People see, and it is all around. So, really, it is very embarrassing for the NRM to continue play. For example, we are going 2026, and everyone, just starting from the composition of the Electoral Commission. I mean, in 1996, between 1996 and 96 and 2006, the president had sanity when he used to elect, and he was sensitive to even other political minds. But right now, you see, he has like I don't care attitude. Because if you have other political players, how do you only bring members of, and my friend Awich should tell us, how do you bring only players of your political parties? And these other ones, if you hear there's a professor from Makerere University, we know them. They are only political members of the NRM,
But
and
it's
they are the referees.
It's the
Now,
president. The president is the one. Your constitution gives the president mandate to elect these people. Even in the court of appeal, the court of the Supreme Court, he's the one who elects these individuals.
yes, I'm telling you, the president, Professor Kanyihamba, told me why they put that clause. It's a fountain of honor.
Yes.
Honor. You have to be seen to do something which is logical, not provocative. What he did is not honorable, it's provocative for your competitor.
Okay.
It is provocative and it is not acceptable, and it will never be acceptable anywhere in the rules of fair play. So I believe these things should, the mind of the ruling party, for example, I'll tell you about how the ruling party is playing its politics. Look at monetarizing. It's no longer a rumor. And he is from the secretariat. He can highlight you. 2 billion shillings was caught in a house. 3.
Yes.
And that is what was accountable for. That definitely, they should.
She first said there are 400. Then she changes there are 800. Then after police investigating, there are 3 billion.
It could be like she had 6.
Exactly. That's what.
And then if she had 6, what does the Secretary General have? Or what does Mr. Awich have here? No. And let me tell you, it seems, me I'm an economist, it seems there is money which is coming from the central government, which, because we're coming to election, which is not accountable for in the Bank of Uganda. And definitely that money is in their houses right now. And they are using it to buy everyone. And I mean, for now, it's no longer a contest of thought and mind like it used to be in the movement system, where actually a platform would be cleared for everyone. Retired Awich comes and speaks, I speak, our ideas would be uniform.
Yeah.
Right now, it's about the money taking your mind. Okay. And now they have the absolute power. So they've monetarized everything. So there is no competition. I tell Ugandans, we shouldn't wait for anything. We just wait for God to liberate us from the same people who came to liberate.
Okay, Director Major Awich, first of all, many people have said this sentiment. You've lost touch with reality. I had one of the leaders in your cabinet call Ugandans idiots who are going hungry because they are hungry and they don't have food. So they are idiots. And many people believe you live in the clouds. You don't understand the reality here. And the other issue is the injustice hovering over this country. People dying and nobody has been convicted. You know, people doing every sort of thing that they want to do, Major. What do you say about these particular issues, sir?
I have many issues I wanted to reply to, raised by Rogers, but let me first answer you. And you put in many at a go again. The issue of the minister, I saw it in social media. I like to hear from him if he said, and in what context. I may dwell in it, and then he says, no, I didn't say that, I was misquoted. So I don't know if he said it and what he meant. Now, about losing touch with the people, we have not. Let me tell you, as a party, we have the capacity to organize people in Uganda through our structures, because we have our structures up to the grassroots. If you want to know, we have our structures up to the grassroots.
That's a reality.
Get to know there's a yellow bicycle everywhere. Because we gave them yellow bicycle. That is from village. Now,
in fact, you have a minimum of 10 people every village.
So now, with our grassroots structures, we have never at any one time organized people to say NRMOE. Our method of mobilization is service delivery. We just go to check, are you getting PDM, are you getting this, are the roads here, are this one. We are really, really service oriented. To the extent that even lately in Wakisu, Kampala, we have almost been doing mobilization indoors. Sit people down, explain to people, find service delivery, what has been sent, what is missing, follow up the corruption that we are talking about, follow up the corruption issues, who has eaten what. That is our method. So we are on the ground. to the extent that, to show you we are on the ground, it is a known fact that we lose election in urban areas. Why? Because the urban areas are the people you are confusing to be Omuntu wa Mwereju, the local people. But it take us to the ordinary people where we are professing service, we follow service delivery. We don't do elections there. So the people you are calling ordinary people are the professors like Rogers. And that is why we lose election in urban areas. Have you seen us losing in the rural? We are with the people. Where we are not are the people, the professors in urban areas.
The rural people are the ones who are easily marginalized.
No. Let me tell you, a person holds his rights. And don't underestimate a person. A person knows the materiality of what touches him or her, regardless of education. So we have done it, and to show we are on the ground, we have lost elections to the urban areas. And that is what you call the ordinary person. It is not. So we are in touch. And by the way, it's a known fact that life expectancy in NRM has been increased to 62 for men, 64 for women.
Yeah.
It used to be 40s when we came to power. Yes. And somebody again was saying that it should be like that. Because remember, my worry of when good things happen, it is not associated to NRM. When the bad one happens, it is NRM. Now he's saying, what does NRM have to do with the life expectancy? I told the person, I said, look, if NRM tells you, if we have a public health policy,
immunize your child,
wash your hands. When you come from the toilet, wash your hands. Do you know how many lives are just saved by washing hands?
Very many.
If we said immunize children, do you know how many mortality death rate we save? If we are going to put speed governor in buses, buses should not overdrive. Do you know how many lives we save? And so if we talk of public health, clean toilet, how many lives? So all this is a component in public health system. And remember, life expectancy is the average of this death which occur when you're a baby. It is divided and it forms the average. We have done that and it has gone up and it has led to increase in population. And also Rogers, I hope Rogers is aware that a survey is done and found that in East Africa, Ugandans are the happiest. Now, if you make Ugandans live longer and happy, then why are you not with the people? What is more than making them live longer and happiest?
It's the most drunkard country in Africa, Uganda. That is a very good catalyst for happiness.
And that is not the checklist. The checklist is far and wide.
Yeah, and what we
because Ugandans
we agree it is the happiest, but if we fear to lose.
I was trying to illustrate the point of being with the people. I first told you we lose election in urban areas, and those are the people you call ordinary people, which is not, but in rural we do. I've illustrated to you how they live long and happy. Yes, and I've illustrated to you how happy they are. So we are with them. The other comment I wanted to make was, which Rogers touched on, is Rogers mentioned about his father. True, I know his father. He is an NRM historical in all definitions. By the way, Rogers' father is also an OB of Ontare. And not only an OB of Ontare, but he is the 61-66 lot. Meaning, that is the lot of Museveni, same class for 6 years. Ruzindana, 6 years. Late Kategaya. And then Kawanga, who was in Masaka, member of parliament. There are many. Bibagamba. So I know them because I've been chairman in Tari School Old Boys for 2 Kisanja, so I know all the hobbies. So it is true his father is that, and I am, the only thing I don't know is whether he thinks that the father has failed to explain. I think the father explains to them the philosophy and how far we have gone, and I'm sure he's very happy about what is going on. Now, about the way forward, which also captures now whether we have overstayed or not, is that there's a natural law of society called the law of negation. Negation here means from the womb of a phenomenon, it develops a system. So we definitely know that biologically by age, our members would be fading. All of us would go. But then we do believe that the philosophy in there, many young people should catch up and do it, including the Rogers. Unless maybe and it is a natural phenomenon which grows out by itself. So if some youth are being impatient or not being part of the negation, then that is unfortunate. But otherwise, it is a natural phenomenon that in the womb of the organ, it develops a system that will maintain it. The point here is that it should not be destroyed by an external force.
It doesn't look like you even have that womb you're talking about.
The womb
because
is
when
there.
you look at who's taking over the realm after your chairperson resigns or steps down, or God forbid does not wake up, it does not look like there is someone that, as a political party, you have designed to take over the mantle. Apart from maybe the son, and it doesn't look like it's the NRM that has designed that.
It is all designed. At the governmental level, the constitution is very elaborate in the absence of the president. The vice president is there. At the party level, we have the party constitution, which says we have the first national vice chairman, the second national vice. The first, for example, is Aji Kigongo. Then you come to Kadaga, and this regional vice chair. Yes. So everything is institutionally governed. Now, what people seem to think is in their imagination, way outside the institutional framework, way outside the law. And I don't know what they think outside, why they choose to think outside the law. But the constitution and the institutional framework in Uganda is more or less like Tanzania. You remember recently when the Tanzanian president died? Was there a vacuum? Did it come from some village to replace the village?
Tanzania has been changing leaders.
So yes. So did the president come from some village?
No.
Wasn't it a lady woman who took over?
Because
so what doubt do you have that?
Saying.
Why do you think
don't have that in our system?
It has never been tested. It hasn't been tested because at one time we know a secretary general who is also an Obiraki knows who got interested. And that's Amama Babazi, and that was even a sin of having interest in never becoming the president. So what we are saying, that system should maybe be tested. Then because the one of Tanzania you're talking about,
even Tanzanian was not tested. Even that of Tanzanian was not tested. It waited to be tested. So you wait to test it. You wait to test it. Otherwise, at the party level, we have all institutional frameworks to insulate us for an emergency or in the absence. Even at governmental level, we know that there's no vacuum at all. The constitution is so clear. We have a vice president. We have everything. So why do you choose to think outside the framework?
Maybe
who is this motivating you to think outside? Why?
Because we are looking for a systematic way, we're not seeing it. But Major, talk about the injustice hovering over this country. Starting from the November murders that happened in Kampala here, talk about Kasese, talk about Northern Uganda. There are many Ugandans who have not got justice. And they cry for it.
Again, you really make it in a minibus. We could take one by one. We already talked about what you call murders in the recent one, the Kampala. The Kampala death, that is what government calls it. Government calls it death. The Kampala's death occurred in the mix of confusion. But the ones government landed over, there is conviction. For example, I've already told you that in Wanigea police, some soldier arrested people who were demonstrating. He took them to Wanigea police. As they were taking him for detention, either they had smoked his jaga or what, He shot the person dead. That soldier was convicted to 35 years in jail. It is in Kitala. Again, over the same demonstration, a soldier chased some people and they entered a garage in Rubaga. He got them from the garage and killed. He was also sentenced to death. Now, government is saying, if there are many deaths, as long as you have evidence, please come forward. So this is to show that in the confusion, wherever death has occurred and evidence found, prosecution took place. And the door is still open to say, should you have evidence that Kopolo Tumusime or Kopolo Kelo is the one who killed in Nakawa, it will be prosecuted. So there's no injustice.
Okay.
Now, you want to say something?
No, I was going to talk about the track that we saw in the BBC investigation, the people who were there. There is nobody, government has come and said, here is this person, they were on this track, this was the driver, these were people who were seated here, these are the people who shot. To show Ugandans that we're doing something. But let me just bring in
I'm
Prof.
not privy to that facts.
Yeah, let me just bring in Prof. Prof, the people you talk about like they are not loved. When you look at the national outlook, these folks are loved. They have the biggest number of people in parliament. There are some areas where you, as the opposition of this country, they did not even have a candidate in that particular district. And NIM swept over what? 8 positions without anybody, standing by them. Don't you think that it's an irony when you say that they've not done enough? When you look at the national outlook, it feels like Ugandans love them.
I rightly, like he said, I was on Christmas in the village. People in the village, my village is in Kahihi, Neru, Kashari, deep. They are electric poles, they have power. Yeah? So you cannot convince them otherwise. I was just disappointed that just see Akira where the power is being made, people don't have, they actually tapping, but 400 kilometers away, there is power.
Yes.
So you see, they've made their system so systematic that some people are so satisfied. And to be sincere, there are some places like Awich is saying where they are comfortable. But also their comfort is also because of not knowing much of what is out there.
Oh, we are thinking for Ugandans, as Mr. Awich was saying.
No, what I'm saying, no, we've seen what is better. Of course, like he's saying, people who expose the elite have seen other countries. Because I'll tell you, if there are, let's say, dictatorship, which I call right now, if it was, let's say, driven like the one in Rwanda, would have got some achievement out of it. But instead, their dictatorship is laissez-faire, whereby look at Kampala roads, potholes, and they just made one. It's like we are working, when it is numb, they know they remove. It's like they don't respect Ugandans for who Ugandans are. We are worthless. And if it's what you call happy, when the visitors are coming, a conference is made. This NAM and his a diplomat was exaggerated. That NAM would have, you are all here in Kampala, would have been done in Speak, in the existing hotels. We didn't have, and I challenge everyone, we didn't have over 500 delegates. International delegates were not there.
For both,
and we are talking about
there were
the
4
official
meetings.
Yeah, those 4. Did you ever see more than 10 heads of state? Chogam was a public holiday and it had over 40 heads of state in the Serena, Kampala. NAM would have been there. But I don't know if it's a deal between a hotel owner and then government. That is the insensitivity. I'm talking about government. I stay on Gaba Road, and I'm reasonable enough to say NAM did not have those delegates. It was a hoax. It was inflated. So, but what I'm showing is that when it is coming, you put in a lot because of an external, unlike what you are putting in us, the citizens. So that is a kind of, like, they are kind of laissez-faire. Ugandans no longer matter. And
so we do things for the guests, not for Ugandans themselves.
True, it is right now. Actually, that's why they are opposed by even artists. These Bobby Wine, because everything is for the camera. And that's why you see the citizens, people who come up and also are like made like that in the artist. Right now it is comedy, both opposition and in government. It is a comedy. There is nothing to be serious about the planning for the citizens. It's just a play and an act.
Okay, let's take a short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. You're still listening to the Hotline show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I'm still with Professor Barigayomwe Rogers from the Kampala International University, and of course the Director External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement, that is Major Retired Pollar Awich. Let's go for a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll start from there, and we'll also look at the functionality of the labor laws in Uganda. What does that look like, especially at a time like this, when we're having an influx of graduates, scoping or entering the market? We shall be talking about that and much more. Let's go for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. You're still tuned into the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga, and of course, we are into the second and the final hour of this particular show. Major, please, I want you to submit or make remarks on what he said, and maybe you can cross over to the next topic.
Yeah. He made comment about the hospital home. I'd just like to say that if you were to judge by cadreship or historical values of NRM cadres, I don't know any NRM cadres who has built a hospital home. I guess he's referring to a house by the speaker. The speaker is a cadre in our own right. Well, she built it. I think she showed it to the public. But would be hesitant if say commander general, as you prefer saying it, would have done the same. But I think the speaker did it, and she can explain herself. Now, on the issue of presidential appointees, it's really something we need to ponder on, because somehow the president has to appoint from Ugandans anyway. And somehow these Ugandans belong to some political views, whether it belongs to NUP or whatever, but he is a political citizen. So he had to appoint. But I think there are checks and balances. The checks here is that when you send to appointment committee, we have had people thrown out by that appointment committee. The former mayor of Kampala was thrown out. Saleh Kamba was thrown out. And the list goes on. Many people have been presented to that committee and thrown out. So all the president does is to appoint, and you approve. So if you think he's wrong, then you don't approve. And the appointments committee comprises all parties. The appointments committee is not on the NRM. And if anything, NRM appointees have been disappointed or removed from, rejected by parliament. So it is difficult to expect a president to appoint from another planet. He has to appoint from the very Ugandans.
But Awich, you know my capabilities, and don't I qualify to be on that committee?
Yes, you're qualified. Many people qualify, but not all can be there. So on the issue of appointments, if we so choose to adopt some procedures used by other countries, Kenya, I think, has their procedures, then the law is not hard and frozen. Ugandans can propose amendments. But so far now, that is agreed procedure. But the laws, I don't think in the eyes of Museveni or NRM, the law is hard and frozen. And we are developing. So if some people feel that this current constitutional dispensation of appointment is inadequate, bring your views forward.
Okay.
But still you'll get it.
As you conclude, sir.
About the number of heads of states in NAM, figures don't lie. I wish I knew Rogers was coming to challenge that. I would have checked. But I was seeing by their arrival in State House, you know, whenever they would arrive in Entebbe, they would be ushered in State House. And the number of arrivals are not like you are saying. There were many. And please, when you're talking of countries, countries are sovereign. Don't disregard any to be small. A head of state like Liechtenstein we are talking about, which has surplus budget. Do you know the population? There are 37,000 people. But the head of state is a head of state in his own right. There are 37,000 people in that country. So, all the heads of states who came, which I don't have the number now, were many. Because I was seeing by the arrival being ushered in State House, one after the other, one after the other. So, but we think that we did achieve, but at least the delegations, whether represented at a level of foreign affairs minister or otherwise, the delegations were big. Yes. So that is a few comments I wanted to make.
Thank you so much, Major. Prof, let me come to you. Let's go to the issue of the practicability of these labor laws or labor rights in this country. And there are many rights that we know. You have a right to leave, that is sick leave, maternity leave, paternity leave. There are lots of good rights and laws on paper. But are they really practical in the real sense of the word here in Uganda? Because it looks like there is a void between the laws, the implementers, but also the people themselves, the employees. How do we look at this particular aspect?
Yeah, and on that actually, I'm a chairman of Labour Party, which is a lobbyist party, friendly to government, that, you know what, for God's sake, because with UPE, which we are proud of NRM and the immunization program, it has created a big middle class.
Yes.
And what I challenge them as a member, as a planner, why? Because right now, you know, for example, the position of the president is ring-fenced somehow. If you are educating P7s, S4s, why don't you ring fence some positions for them? For example, why don't you say that to drive a border, you have to have P7? You are putting meaning to education.
Yes.
But you educating with a lot of unemployment, and the education doesn't have a meaning. Why isn't there that a driver of a bus should be at least S4? Because when you're driving a bus, you are putting many people's lives at stake, and there is no qualification for that.
Yes.
Why I'm challenging, and why are you educating anyway and causing all this unemployment, and you're not putting meaning to education, yet a very big part of your budget is on education. So what is practically not possible is there are many rights, and the rights are, for example, you've said maternity. In the real sense, there should even be a minimum wage.
Yeah, it's not there. That one President first said stop.
But because of the strategy of the NRM, that they are more interested in those visitors I talked about, in the investors.
That's what the President said.
Yeah, more interested, and there you're qualifying me. They are more interested in the investors than in the citizens. Most of these investors, some who are quack and what, are thriving. What you would call their profit is actually what they are depriving of the laborers.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a time I was working in Kasese and there was a Koba factory. And they told me, don't think because Uganda has cobalt and you think in America doesn't have cobalt. But a compensation for an American, you can even close a factory.
Yes.
Because it is known that cobalt will affect you in like 10 years' time. It will actually kill you. So when an American looks for compensation, but look at these investors they are bringing. After someone dies, they give a bag of posho and 100,000 to their peasants who they said in the village, they clap for them. They don't know that their life is at stake. Such issues. Look at the type of investors they are bringing. I saw the most recent of the pipeline. They are actually running away from the West because in West, their companies have to follow some sort of corporate governance. I mean, you have to. Why do you think ShopRite is closing from camp? Because they have to give a minimum wage. They have to give leave. But these ones, you see, these Uganda now, even the Ugandan investors, like you say, quality, some of those supermarkets, they will never give leave. They will never give a minimum wage. They will. So in the end, that's why you see Uganda is shifting to China and to Arabs, because they've given one of the biggest projects we have now, oil refinery building to Arabs. Because ethically, you know it. I'm a human rights lawyer. Ethically, the Asia, Arabs, the Chinese have no regard of laborers and human rights. So for them, they will come, bang a deal with their political party, because you know they give too much to them. I hope you know it. And in a way, they will set up a factory. And this factory, even I've known it, because where I'm living is a residential area, and they are Chinese producing what they call noni.
Yes.
Yeah? Which is
Very
hazardous
expensive.
actually also to human life, but it is in a residential area and it is protected by the military.
Yes.
So what I'm showing you is that the disregard for what they've said, like they know these, like they said, these prophets are elites, they don't, and these ones, then they go and manipulate the ones, these peasants because for them they don't have that information like I have, that actually if you work you should be compensated in case of a problem. But now for them they give them a sack of posho, and so that's why you are saying it is not practical, but it is practical. These laws have thrived. Actually, in like us in universities, we teach about even the minimum rules. Yeah? Even talk about the laws of retirement. How can it be universal? It has never been seen. And in this case, I'm talking about the right of the president to have leave. When I give this in the man has never had leave for 38 years.
He said he had only 2 days.
And they are celebrating. That in human, it has never been heard of.
Only had two
because
leaves
actually,
in 38 years.
in real management, as a professor of management, if a person doesn't have leave for 2 years, that you should dismiss them. They are hiding something. And for the good of their health, they should have. How can we have a president who in 38 years, 2 days? So, and this is, it comes from up to, they say the fish rots from up to the, so there is basically a breakdown in the system, and it is witnessed. So never think these investors who are coming are for the good of us citizens. They are just banging their, that's why in the even apart from the IGG, they've developed, I think, a desk monitoring people who are
investors protection unit.
And most of the people who have been cheating these investors are insiders. They are not from a position. They are real insiders in the party. Do you get it?
Yes,
So just to know, most of the investors who came 20 years, 10 years ago, most of them are crooks.
But there are also investors who do not even have money. Have you realized that?
Let me tell you, on this street, I'm just using this street for lack of there, and I know we should respect immigrants and everything. When you start moving right now,
road here.
Eritreans.
Yes. They are literally everywhere.
And I even there is a Eritrean who was selling this kasori, roasting on the road. Do you get it? With this kind of unemployment, unregularized. Now they've started even selling kasori, which was supposed to be. No, I mean, so we have unemployment. You are not regulating even immigrants or any person who comes in Uganda. No, in Uganda anyone can come in, and we are a hospitable country. I like it. But anyone can do anything here. But yet government is, that's why I said it puts more focus on visitors than the citizens.
Okay, let me come to Major. There is something in this country. You go to, let's call these high-end restaurants, and a meal for two is literally the payment for that person serving you, that waitress or waiter, for the entire month. But there are folks who are eating this in just lunch or dinner. Don't you think there is need for a minimum wage below structuring generally in terms of the labor in this country? What more can you do as government?
Yes, a need for minimum wage. But let me first talk about you talk. Our topic demands that we talk about the practicality of labor laws. I guess the view is that our viewers should understand fairly about labor laws, what it is and all that. And I think I would pick from where Professor Rogers has stopped. Labor laws are laws that are supposed to protect or remedy violations which occur during the employment system.
Yes.
And we start off from the grand law, which is the Constitution. The Constitution of Uganda is the supreme law of the land. It provides, I think, I don't remember the wording, but it provides that every Ugandan has a right to practice his trade, to work, a right to work. You're free to work.
Yes.
And it prohibits slavery.
Yes.
In fact, slavery in Article 44 is one of the do-nots that you can't do in Uganda. Article 44 provides for things under all circumstances you can't do. One of them is slavery. So this is broadly how the Constitution provides for our labor law. And it is from the Constitution that other laws and acts of parliament come from. So it is worth knowing and drawing to the attention of the citizens or the viewers that the grand norm, the Constitution provides for labor rights and labor laws. It is also good to know that there are various laws that are provided for Parliament. Some are in a one condensed way, like labor laws, but others are provided for under various other legislations to protect the rights of employers. Yes. We have Employment Act. Employment Act is the most detailed law that we have in Uganda, and it has all provisions and definitions to all that aspect. But it's also worth knowing that in Uganda, we also follow other international laws which govern labor. Like, for example, Uganda has ratified the convention of ILO convention. Then other human rights provisions provides for protection under the labor. So, therefore, we have to conform to institutions that are demanded by those conventions that we signed. And that is why we have even things like NSSF. NSSF actually is a bond from outside captured in government. It was really moved by mostly socialist countries to say, no, you must provide for security of a person after leaving work. Because like in Europe, you don't have a garden, you don't have a granary, you leave work and you go where? And that is why the laws now come to say, okay, let your employer provide this amount, and you also provide something, you save something, so that when you leave work, you are not on the street. Because if he was on the street, it becomes a burden, it becomes a lubengo to the society. So all those are labor laws to protect. So the labor laws in Uganda, therefore, are supposed to protect you while entering employment and during employment and when you have exited employment. So that is a gist of labor laws if we are to talk about the practicalities. Let me talk about an aspect of labor that is a big concern of debate now. People have been saying, why are people going to Middle East? The labor migration. People think that the labor migration is the inability or failures of NRM, and that is why people are going. I want to share with our viewers this phenomenon. You see, the world has found out that there's imbalance in labor all over the world. I once boarded a bus in Berlin in Germany, and when I reached home, I was staying with some professor friend who was working with me in Geneva. I told the professor, I said, you know what, professor, I seem to have boarded the wrong bus. He asked me why. I said, that bus looks like for the elderly, because the average youngest person there was 65 years. The professor said, no, that is the population here. There are no young people. That is what is in Germany. People are 65 years and above. So you find that in that country, there are no youth. So there's labor imbalance. And the Middle East, you find they don't have this kind of labor. Now, because the world has imbalances in labor, it has made the world to come up with a convention called Migrant Workers Convention. A convention on migrant workers. And believe me, laws are made as a mischief, to cure a mischief. If such circumstances was not existing, such a convention would not have come up. So there's imbalance. Now, that is why now you find Ugandans going to Middle East. By the way, Uganda compared to Kenya and Tanzania, we export the least number. We don't have the biggest. Kenya sends more.
Are you sure?
My God, you go to Dubai, you even walk around the airport, you will not see a Ugandan. But you find Kenyan, Nigerian, what? Go to the factories, you find Nigerians. So they have, these countries are more than Uganda. Why? Because of the imbalance in labor. To the extent that Philippine, they send out 11 million nurses. 11 million. Mexico has 11 million laborers in the United States, to the extent that Mexico has even acted a movie that 1 minute without a Mexican. Because they were telling Americans, if you think we are coming to do cheyu for you, and we are useless. For 1 minute, withdraw all the million Mexican. If the economy of America doesn't come to a halt, your toilet will block, your restaurant will have no cooks, your whatever, everything. So they acted the movie saying 1 minute without Mexican. So the labor imbalance is there. But here, because we don't seem to understand it, first of all, we think Uganda sends the biggest to Middle East, which is wrong. Secondly, we think it is only Uganda sending, which is wrong. But there's labor imbalance globally. Okay. Now, the only thing that we could be thinking now is, how do we leverage inequality export of labor? Like you are saying, Filipino is exporting nurses. Can we also leverage and get a competency in areas that we can do it? That is what we should be thinking. But there's no way you're going to avoid labor export. It is a global phenomenon. So what I'm saying is to our viewers is that I wanted to bring the viewers that as a country, we have laws that protect a worker from entering employment, during employment, and in the exit of employment. That is when I mentioned NNSS.
They don't look, they look beautiful. By the way, the problem of Uganda has never been the laws. The laws look good, but it's the implementation. Are these laws protecting these young people that are going to these countries every day?
That is supposed to be provided for under the Migrant Workers Convention. The Migrant Workers Convention gives obligations to both the exporting country and the host countries. And when you sign those conventions, you're supposed to be alive to those obligations. For example, what should the exporting country do, which is under Ministry of Labor? There are things under the law that the Ministry of Labor should do to check standards. For example, safeties of these people, their employment contract, their health provision, security systems. It is very elaborate under the law of Uganda. There should be a commissioner for labor in the Ministry of Labor, which should be seeing this. And I believe they try. I've seen some doing it. So, if there is nothing done, then it is an omission on the other side. On the other hand, the host countries where there are migrant workers, they have their obligations which they should meet. And therefore, there should be a checklist that side. I think our embassies out there should check with them to see you are the host and these are your obligations you should meet. So all these are provided for. I know of commissioners who try to do it, but how they do it or how competently they do it, it's another thing, but it is there. So therefore, as a country, there are all the available procedures to protect a laborer in entering in a day-to-day life and that. Then I wanted to say Roger's views on ring fencing. First of all, I don't believe that education is only for employment. In as far as employment for salary is concerned, for me, my belief is that education should be for developing your tools of analysis. Your tools of analysis that you can survive and exist even without salary job. You can do something good for yourself. Rogers knows me very well, that I have been, before this deployment of a director in NRM, was I poor?
No, sir.
Rogers knows it. Rogers knows that before I even went to director as a director, I had 2 Land Cruisers. They brand new. So that is what we're saying. You should have education where you can stand and do what you can do.
Okay.
Honestly, without even being fraudulent. So I do not believe that, because Rogers is saying, why do we have to educate anyway? So education is far over and above employment. Then Rogers says that the insiders are the insiders who are defriending investors are from the party. I don't think it is absolutely true, Rogers. They could be in government, but they are not in the party. They could be in government.
They
could be in the government. They could be in government, but not in the party. Because for us in the party, we have clear structures. I told you already the structure from that village chairman who owns a yellow bicycle to the parish level, to the sub-county, to the district, to the national. We know them. And we are not yet, I'm not yet convinced to know that party structures have started indulging in investors' procedure or investment procedures. It's government. And government is everybody. And for us, actually, in the party, we have a problem in that the civil servants who mess up even good manifesto provisions, when they mess it up during the campaign, they said, we are not party officials. We are not even going to, we don't campaign. And yet they are the ones who are spoiling the things. Then the Lubengo comes on the party official. Because we are the ones who have made the manifesto. We are the ones who are explaining to the people. So it's not clear, it's not sure that the party people know. They could be in government from other political shades.
Okay, Prof, let me come to you. This issue of young girls being exported, every day at the airport, you'll always find a group of young girls going outside. Is this really a blessing to us in terms of these remittances? Or there is something that we are not seeing that is brewing under there? And maybe also, you talked about the quality of education. As a professor, we have young people coming from these institutions of learning, your universities. For example, they call themselves a journalist, and he has a degree in journalism, but they can't even write a news story. So is this really a problem, or there is a quality gap in the skill of these young people? Please address those.
Yeah, definitely. He talked of by the way, and I'm taking it to him since he's one of the technocrats in the party. I was with Fajil Mande, who is one of expert and I think a former cadre. And I told him, since independence, Uganda's education is at the lowest. I've been in the education sector since independence, 1962. The quality of education is at its lowest. And he did not refute that. My mentor has also agreed that education in any way is supposed to improve the quality of analysis and everything. But because it was with the UPE, it was about proving a point. UPE and USE. And definitely, these days, it's now political, because even the exams are released from the State House. The results you see are political results. They are not quality results. They are political, to prove a point that we are good on this. And today's New Vision, I think, will monitor, they were analyzing where are all these dropouts from these levels. So now that is causing what you talked about. A substandard education makes now people feel desperate. First of all, the parents have sold everything they had for a substandard education. At the end of it all, they say it was a hoax. There is nothing much. So now they have to derive. If you see university students, they are now thinking about going to Canada, going to other. I've been consulting with many of them to do these odd jobs. You get it? And it is not very good for the country, because we've spent a lot of money in their training. I was reading statistics, and it shows that those domestic workers, actually, I think their remittances are one of the highest, 4.2 trillion. And one, you would ask, why are they going there? Because a domestic worker in the Asia earns more than a university professor in private universities. So definitely there is no work which is codified here. If you even go to see state attorney, all those domestic workers are earning more. And actually it intrigued me as like, now why not even put a minimum for the one? Because if the ones who go out and are not 10%, because most of us have these domestic workers, you talked about protecting them as a failure there. but they are not protected either at home. Because you said Uganda, and I like when Major which talks about the policies, those ones you rightly said, they are there, they are good. We have industrial courts,
Yes.
we have inspectors, but let's, even home here, practically, a rich man has a factory and my labor rights are being abused. I take him on. You have to register it with the industrial court and the inspector comes. Who will the inspector listen to? A man who practically has $1 million on account where Uganda has gone. Or me, who is just asking for my 200,000. So the laws are there, but it is not practical. He talked of NSSF. How many employers are remitting NSSF?
There are very few.
And you know, with this ring fencing, what has happened is, it has made, okay, with the overstay, about 40 years in power, the politicians are the richest. They are the investors in a way. We no longer have, I even tell people the biggest business is now politics.
Yes.
So now they are the ones who own those industries, they are the ones who own those factories, and they are the ones abusing the rights of the workers. And in a way, they are the ones who will tell the DPC, you saw what happened to a prominent man recently at a farm. You get it, eh? So there are those contradictions whereby, leave alone where we don't maybe have jurisdiction is saying about, but here in Uganda, the abuse is too much. So actually, someone would rather tolerate the injustices
There.
and go at least get the money out there. It is increasing and it is worrying. I even got worried. I'm like, why don't these people, whenever I'm on the plane, because you are about 5 guests and 80% always on the people plane, and they are dressed as if you are real exporting. And
That's the reality.
I'm worried that they
In uniforms,
in uniforms, and I'm worried that this does not bother the ruling government to see that this is how far, because this is a self-enslavery, especially we
But
know
they are
that
making money.
okay, what
They are building
on that is
homes here back at home.
true, because that is the
You've
better
talked about the
alternative.
remittances they're making to the country. Too much.
True, that's what I'm saying. But the reason why they are doing that is because home they are not protected, and I would also support them in their way of survival if you have to get it out there. But I think something has to be down here, because for example here, like I've told you, because of lack of things like minimum wage, abuse of most of these investors, and I will speak to, even I'll be specific, and I'll tell you, name the richest 4 Ugandans who have got, it's out of rinsing Ugandans and workers. I know it. I have research on it. So it is out of that disparity that most Ugandans are going out. But in the long run, in the short run, it looks positive. In the long run, we are selling our experts, the scientists. We are selling them after investing a lot in them.
What happened to the labor unions? These things were supposed to protect the workers. These days, they went silent.
The labor unions have been with the politics of the day. I will tell you, for example, who was the Secretary General of the teachers. Yeah? He's my teacher. He's my teacher with Awich in Tare School. He's now at their secretariat, or he's supervising. How did he end up supervising the RDCs? Because he was doing a good job in mobilizing teachers to get their rights, and everybody is being bought off. That is not decent enough for our country. Like most of these union leaders are people, they come and shop. You get it? And actually, as even a lobbyist of labor, I try to be like in a friendly way lobby government to do that. I was warned that once you have structures, those structures are going to be bought off. Even you will be bought, and it's possible that but it is unfortunate for our future if everything should be
Because
But
I feel everything is really money. A problem, we're just throwing money at it.
Yeah, so
Keep
that's
quiet.
why you saw at one time, and those labor laws, like he's saying in the constitution, there. You remember there's a time when teachers were intimidated.
Yes.
Intimidated because you talk of industrial action. You cannot do it practically here in Uganda. So it is in the constitution, it is in the laws, but it is not practical. But otherwise, it is only the labor unions who have the capacity, even of changing the government, not the politicians you see
Many
here.
labor unions
Because
have led to changes in government.
where I was trained my doctorate in South Africa, COSATU, after ANC had failed, at that time, one of the leaders of the labor union was Ramaphosa, the current president of South Africa. He just said, no, just mine workers don't go to, he was a leader of mine workers, don't just go to work. And the economy would collapse. Do you get it? So it's restricted. Even COSATU is a force in the South African politics. But here, which labor union have you heard of? And when they start, they are intimidated.
UNATU, they ended up buying, okay, according to allegations that the leaders were paid off and the struggle stopped there.
The only one which was successful was the one of the medical workers. And you remember that is the only time I saw even the president sweating on TV. When the doctors don't work for a month, the things of theirs, they are threatening tear gas is useless. You cannot, they are military people, but you cannot tear gas everyone all the time. But now they make sure workers are not mobilized, and that's why they will always buy. But this is not sustainable if we are planning for economy, because labor is a factor of production.
Exactly, one of the greatest therein. Major, what do you have to say about these strong statements made against your government to being able to procure support, to find a solution by monetizing literally most of these cases or these issues? Do you have something to comment on that, sir?
Well, the labor movement in Uganda, in my opinion, is not very grown or very developed, but to associate its failure to develop to government, I am not so sure. We operate a liberalized economy.
Yes.
And therefore, we would expect that people who are working in private sector organize themselves. Ideally, labor union is supposed to start with trade. Trade, for example, if you are trading under medical doctors, that is your trade, medical doctors. If you are trading as teachers, that is your trade as teachers. If you are trading like sugarcane plantation workers, that is your trade like sugarcane plantation workers. Or if you're bicycle repairers, then that is your trade as bicycle repairers. So ideally, you're supposed to organize yourself under trade system, trade union, then the trade union come together to form labor union. And the labor laws are there. So as to why they have failed to organize themselves, I don't know. But I do not think that government has impeded the growth. The growth is into the consciousness. You know, labor workers are supposed to develop consciousness. And that is the consciousness that they develop in the course of work, which worked even in the Russian or the Soviet Union 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. You didn't even need to educate the workers. It is the violations or the suffering that occur in their day-to-day work that mobilizes them. So somehow, when you see the labor union not working well, the possibility is that employers are managing them well. Yes. Because once you are oppressed, the oppression itself mobilizes you automatically. That is why even Pan-Africanism did not start from Africa. Pan-Africanism started from outside because of the oppression the Africans outside had. So you can't force a labor union. A labor union will come automatically by the oppression or the injustice that there is. But once you solve their problems, then they tend to be loose. So maybe the private sector laissez-faire operation sorts out workers, and that's why you don't find a need to organize themselves as a trade first of all, and then as a union. Of course, you know very well that if they are organized, there's even a provision. How many of them in parliament? 5. 5 workers MPs are provided for. That's where the Rwakazara are.
Yes.
There are 5 members in parliament. So they are organized, and maybe quietly so. Because how do they manage to send members to parliament?
The feeling on ground is really that these employees, when you liberalize the economy and it became a private sector-led economy, government ceased to really find out what is happening with the workers themselves. It's more of let the employers finish everything. But then the law provides them organization, even in that private sector. The law and the laborers are aware about that. They are aware about a right to form a union. So why haven't they formed it? For example, has government gone to Kinyara Sugar Work and stopped workers from forming a labor union in Kinyara? Or has government gone to which big organization you can cite? No. So he has an answer for you. For that
let me finish, then he will answer. Okay. So now I am saying that the labor union is provided for, and every employer who gets, or every employee who is offered a job is made aware about it. It is in the contractual terms. So if it is in the contractual terms that you are employed and here is your right, then what do you expect the government to do? They are supposed to organize themselves, and therefore that is why the government told them that should you be organized, you get members of parliament. Now on the issue of Tueheyo James, Tueheyo James is a member of Central Executive Committee. I don't think Tueheyo was bought as such. Tueheyo only got the chance of his popularity among the workers to get elected. Remember, his position is not appointive. His position is elective. So many of them, having worked in the labor union as a position holders, like you say Dr. Lumiochi, they take that advantage of their popularity to seek for election. And that is how they get to elective position, not appointed. If Tueheyo James was appointed, he would have, we would say that the party bribed him. The other comment I wanted to make was that for the case of migrant workers, my view is that the going out is not much of a closing inside. It is much of the opening outside. I repeat, the labor migration is not much because here it is closed, but rather because outside is open. That is why some people, like he's saying, you get more money than a university professor. It's not that because he cannot get, say, a job as a professor, but outside is more opening. And that is why I said, when the world noticed that there are this imbalance, there's a fluidity, that labor is a free movement of labor. That is why the world came up with an instrument to say, let us pass a convention called Convention on Migrant Workers. So it is not because of a closing, but rather because of an opening. Because if there was no opening, these people wouldn't go.
Okay.
They wouldn't go.
Okay, Major.
Therefore, I don't know, something keeps coming in my mind. I mentioned Roger's father of 61, 66 in Intare School. I don't know whether they made it clear that that is the lot of Museveni.
Yes, you
did I? That his father was a classmate with Museveni for 6 years.
Yeah, and the Ruzindana.
Yes, and even went ahead to be that, to be NRM, and he has held several positions in NRM until his lawful retirement. So therefore, the labor organization, every Ugandan who is employed in Uganda, part of his contractual terms is to show him that you have freedom to associate, to freedom to form your association as a trade. The trade is the LC1, is the first unit.
Yes.
That is, if you're sugarcane cutters, that is your trade. If you are teachers, because you are trading as a teacher. If you are a doctor, you are trading as a doctor. So every employee is given this. It is part of the contractual arrangement. This is your contract and this is your right. So if they don't form, who are you? It is true in South Africa, COSATU. ANC, for example, is made of 3 things. African National Congress. First, there's the workers, the COSATU. Then there's the Communist Party. And then there's something which forms the ANC. In other words, like the Communist Party, is that all members of Communist Party are members of ANC. But not all ANC members are members of the Communist Party. So it is organized like that. The workers have a big say in African National Congress. But here you are, for whatever reason, the workers have not organized themselves. I know for a fact that no government deliberately goes to disrupt a trade union organization. That you're in Kinyara, we don't want you to form. No.
A trade union can affect.
For instance, if I would reply, you have 5 workers MP and you have 10 UPDF. Is that fair enough? Even if you look at the contribution to the economy and everything. But let me take it more international, like you're talking about developing countries. One of the first protocols by now which would have been realized in the whole East Africa is the free movement of labor.
Yeah.
Why hasn't it been realized? And actually establishing our labor organization like mine was to look at more of East Africa, because we looked at, I'm one person who believes that before we federate, we have to first come to political federation and have the mind. One, NRM is irrelevant to Kenyans. Yet, that's why the spirit of starting Labour Party. Labour will be in Kenya, will be in Tanzania, will be in Rwanda. And that's the best spirit of federating. Workers come together. But even after the protocols were signed, right now, by now, according to the current of the East African Corporation, a worker me working in Kenya, I wouldn't need a work permit. I wouldn't need a work permit in Tanzania. But up to now, there is segregation. And why you see even they run as much as, Middle East wouldn't be the best. The ones who can would go to Canada. I was in Vancouver 3 months ago. Many Ugandans are arriving. What he's saying actually is wrong. In Dubai, Ugandans have overtaken the Kenyans. In China, and most of our sisters are more even in prostitution, but that is a trade to them. Ugandans have overtaken. Because one, even what they are not finding in Uganda, there is nothing ring-fenced. Like I've told you, Eritreans have started even doing roasting kasori. Yeah? Now in East Africa, there is no opening for them. So where are you sending them? But by now, even as East Africa, there should be a free movement of labor protocol. There would be standard laws. I mean, they are written, but they are not implemented like you talked about. We have many laws, but there is no implementation. And I would think, maybe since it's from the NRM Secretariat, I don't see it a spirit of East African cooperation, because there is no cooperation. If there is no cooperation, even in labor, in the biggest tradable item, then what are we going to cooperate about? So I think it is an intention, and I realize, I think when the state saw that federation would make things like labor movements come up. Like, for example, in Kenya, during COVID, the president increased the minimum wage.
Yes.
Kenya has a minimum wage. Why can't Uganda borrow from it? But increase the minimum wage by, I think, 10% across. So it's practical, actually, that we can have a minimum wage. It's practical that these things...
Are these the solutions you are giving? Because I wanted during these last few minutes to just highlight on some solutions that you think government can adapt in terms of making the labor more impactful, more respected, and more seen and visible.
Yeah, it would be a cooperation, like you talked about, of South Africa, where laborers, because I would tell you that the notion, like you said, don't you see these people are comfortable with us in the villages? Because now they've taken the peasant as their core voting person. And I would tell them, I would even sell to them a vision that they should incorporate, like South Africa, the workers as a because they created them by UPE, by USE. But now, this class they are talking about is going to die out. If you see the pyramid, it has changed. So now most of them are middle class, and these are laborers in town, and even unemployed, I would say those are labor issues. Yeah, so the parties should incorporate, all parties, they should incorporate that element, because one, they're the biggest contributors to the economy. Yes. So I'm selling it to my senior mentor here that all political players should incorporate in the workers as an important element of the development of the country, because a middle class has been created, which is not going away. And I believe it is actually your vision.
So what kind of middle class do we have? You were using that middle class, and people may think about people who have a lot of money. The middle class of Uganda,
no. Actually, the middle class are the most suppressed, because, like I've told you, that I went in the village. Now, these people know their voting patterns. It is people in the village. They send resources to them. You get it? Who is paying those resources for? The laborer, this middle class. Yeah? And of course, as you know, the incidents of trade, those things that the bourgeoisie, who became the political class now because of 40 years, I mean, they've been getting salaries for 40 years. You heard about the V8. Eh? Now, these ones are cushioned. They will always pass on their troubles to the taxpayers, the middle class. And now these middle class have been neglected because, like you say, they know they don't have votes. Even they are not their voters. But it is very dangerous going forward, because it is already a big number, and actually it is growing bigger than what they are trusted peasants. And these ones are going to cause a revolution very soon. So I think they have to be more sensitive to that, and all political players across, and we should have a conversation about the future of the country with the laborers in the center of it.
Okay, we've come to the end of the discussion. Please give us your parting shots before I welcome Major.
My parting shots, I insist that let's have labor laws which are sensitive to workers. Let's implement the minimum wage. Let's continue to take the issues, and especially, I know Major, which is is one of the people who moves the agenda. And on that, if he invites me in their manifesto, because for us, first of all, we believe in rotation leadership, but we believe that we work with the government to help the workers. People have it that you have to be in government. No. The notion is you work with government to protect the rights of workers. So I am selling it to the ruling government, because you cannot now on this issue talk about the oppositional parties, but you talk about the ruling government, that it has created a labor class bigger than their revolutionary military people, and they should be sensitive to the needs of the labor.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Major.
I have a parting shot, but I want to briefly explain about the minimum wage. The minimum wage, in the opinion of the president and the party, is that we are still attracting investors. If you put minimum wage now, somebody who may try to say, I cannot operate with this minimum, he will run away. But we have still left it open so that the investors can come and keep negotiating and pay accordingly. But time will come when negotiations about minimum wage will come up. So it is work in progress. So that is a position. Now, about...
Of the president, now of the party?
Same thing. Okay. That is the same thing. That if you put minimum, suppose somebody comes with a capital, where if he operates with that minimum wage, he won't make anything, then he will rather run away. So, but on the overarching comment and parting shot is that I like laborers to know that without laborers, there is no production. And it is only from production of services and goods that we can meet our needs. So I encourage workers that when you are employed, please know that it is your right to organize yourself. Because it is when you organize yourself that you are able to jointly defend your rights. And it is provided under the law. And please, workers, take advantage.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen, for honoring our invitation today. And of course, our viewers who have been watching us from 7 p.m. up to now, thank you so much for tuning in. We shall meet tomorrow morning at exactly 8 a.m. We are always here doing the Mighty Drive from 8 to 10 a.m. Please do not miss that particular show. Please do follow us on our social media platforms at Digitalk TV, at The Alternative Uganda, on all social media platforms. My name is Edgar. I was with Major Awich and of course Professor Rogers right here. From the entire team, God bless you, have a good night, and God bless Uganda.